I think what makes this interesting, though, Chris, is what keeps ringing in my head is my conversation with Ashley Spates, when she talks about pain being the alarm system for the body. And I just kind of wonder if it's possible that at this point, when Ben Simmons is about to play basketball, the mental side of it kicks in and is like, nah, dude, your back hurts. Don't do that. Last time you did that, it was really bad for you. Don't do that. Don't play basketball. And eventually, you just got to push through that because your back is fine, or your ankle, if you hurt yourself doing box jumps or whatever, like eventually you got to jump on the box again. And your brain's got to learn that it's safe to do that thing. And I wonder at this point with Simmons if that like neurological part of this equation is affecting him more than some physical back injury. Obviously, we don't know. I'm not pretending to be in the know of his medical situation. I just wonder if that's a possibility, and if that's not even potentially the most likely possibility.
Yeah, I think like you said, the biggest thing that anybody should ever take away from any of this, and if you're listening to this, the biggest takeaway is, of course, me and Craig don't know. And
right.
And the truth is, maybe not even the Brooklyn Nets know. There's only one person in this world that knows what's going on with Ben Simmons, and that's Ben Simmons. Yeah, and there is a lot to do with the connection between physical pain and what's happening in your brain, as we've learned with Ashley, as we learned with Dr. Perry Nicholson, as we learned with Abby Duncan when she was talking about complex regional pain syndrome and what that means, right? So there are a ton of things, and we do know that, that old saying of it's all in your head, it's all in your head. Yes, that's partly true, but it's also not all the way true, because if it is in your head, that's still real physical pain that person is
sure
actually feeling, right? So, and again, nobody knows how he hurt his back, why he hurt his back, when he hurt his back, or any of that stuff. So, yeah, I think it becomes a very it becomes a situation, especially now, where it feels like for Ben Simmons, everybody in the world knows what's going on with him. So now there's this added pressure of like, when he does go back out there, he's going to have to go back out there and play well, right? And if he doesn't play well, then, two things are going to happen. One group is going to be like, well, he shouldn't have come back if he wasn't right. And the other group is going to be like, oh, he's a bum, right? So, like, in all honesty, if I was the Brooklyn Nets, I would rule him out for Game 4 anyway, because you're down 3-0. Nobody's ever come back from 3-0. You throw this kid out here who's already had mental health issues. You guys lose the game anyway, and everybody blames him for you losing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would feel like this is almost an ideal situation for him, though, because he can come back and there's no pressure. You're down 3-0. Like, what happens? You lose? Like, okay, that's what you thought. You say, like, hey, they were the better team. He gets to be out there. You get to see what it looks like. He gets to get that game under his belt, as opposed to an entire other summer of speculation about whether he's still a good basketball player and whether he's ever going to play again. Like, at least you'd rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, but again, like, look at what you just said, right? Like, what's the risk and the reward now? Like, the reward is you get to at least rip the Band-Aid off, and then we're off until the fall. Versus the risk is you're going to damage this kid more. If he does have actual back problems going on, we could damage that going back into the summer. So, I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. What I do know is there's going to be a lot of talking heads talking about this tomorrow. Or Monday, whenever it is that you're listening to this, and everybody's going to have their opinion about Ben Simmons, and I get both sides. I get all sides, because it's like, hey, your team is counting on you, your organization is counting on you, you should be healthy to go. What's going on? Nobody knows the truth. And then the other side is, hey, like, if there is actually something going on with you, take whatever you need to get right, and then, when you're right, we'll be here, and we'll be glad to have you.
Yeah, this is where I always struggle when I got the mic and the headphones out on the sports radio side of things, and why I appreciate having the background that I have in sports science and all the training stuff is because I think having that, like, like, we're not medical professionals, obviously, but like that medical approach to it, where injury management and that kind of stuff we obviously deal with, even though we're not doctors. Like, having that approach is always going to factor into my analysis, which is good, because that's like way more important than getting up on TV and screaming a hot take. Like, right. But at the end of the day, like, there are a lot of factors here. Like, he's getting paid a lot of money, which I don't begrudge the actual dollar amount. It's just that like his contract is a high percentage of the salary cap. He's counted on by that organization and his teammates to be a reliable piece of the organization. Now they acquired him, Brooklyn did, knowing that this was part of the equation to a point. But like, if he assured them like, no, I'm ready to go, whatever, they thought they were going to get something out of him, that factors into their decision to make that trade. They invested in him, and he should want to pay off that investment. And when you look at Ben Simmons' history of, he clearly didn't want any part of Philadelphia, and like I get that to a point, but he wasn't even willing to work with them at all. Like he was obstinate kind of in how he approached that. They were trying to be open to him. They were trying to help him out, and he just didn't want any of it. And eventually, like someone who needs help has got to want to be helped. And then you go back even to college and what he did at LSU, where he wasn't interested in being there. And everyone kind of, I guess, again, on some level understood the deal with him, but it's not a good track record for his competitive character. And like when you're talking about professional sports, that matters a lot. Like that's part of what makes Giannis Antetokounmpo great. It's what we laud about Michael Jordan. It's what's made LeBron so great over the years. Like their competitive character is so high, and you look at what this situation is with Simmons, and it's really hard to understand. And again, because we don't know, like maybe this back thing is something that's serious and needs to be worried about, in which case, yeah, talking about his competitive character doesn't matter because it's a back injury. But I think what's interesting to me is seeing guys like Reggie Miller and a lot of other, whether it's former players or the insider types that are plugged in around the league. It seems like the word in the NBA is that this dude's competitive character isn't up to snuff, and that he's just kind of a selfish guy and is never really someone that's going to be relied upon. And his back injury is not really that serious, or the other stuff was all an excuse. And that would really suck if that wasn't the case, because I feel like the next guy that comes along that has an actual injury or is having real mental health issues, like if Simmons is playing this up in some kind of way, like that hurts that guy too. It's just nobody wins with how this is right now, and I hope it's legit. Obviously.
Well, and like you said, look, like two things, right? Like if there is that chatter going around in that league, that chatter didn't just start yesterday.
Right.
It didn't just start today,
totally.
right? So look, buyer beware, right? Like if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you make this trade and you pull this trigger on Ben Simmons, you do your homework on this kid. You do your homework and see what was he like at LSU, what was going on in Philly, what's the real reason why it's not working out over there. And if you're willing to still pull that trigger, then look, that's on you. You bought this. You bought this is what
you bought him with the contract and the whole thing. Right. You knew the price tag. It was up front.
This is what you signed
MSRP,
up for.
Lots of money.
Exactly. So, don't blame him for being him. Like he is who he is, right? And again, don't know, but like a lot of this is on Brooklyn, and maybe it's on Brooklyn too, because from an organizational standpoint, look, if there is something going on, we don't know. Look, there's stuff going on in New Orleans as well with Zion, right? Mm-hmm. Like, all right, hey, we don't want to rush you back. Where Zion's like, no, I want to play, right? Like
right.
we don't know where that tug of war is going, right? So there's so much to know that we don't know. There's so much to react to that, like, there's going to be a lot of reactions, but I can see it from both sides. I can see the organization saying, hey, look, don't rush back. We traded you for the long haul. We didn't trade for you so we can win the championship this year. This is not our window. Our window extends beyond this. We've got 2 number 1 draft picks from the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, this was a long-term trade for us. This wasn't, we need to win the championship this year. So if you're not 100%, don't rush back. Right?
Yeah, I would want to know what Kevin Durant thinks of not winning a title this year, because that's certainly what they signed up for in Brooklyn. And by the way, but KD and Kyrie aren't getting any younger, and their contracts are coming. Like Kyrie's a free agent, I think, this offseason, or can become a free agent this offseason. And who knows what the hell he's going to do, because Kyrie doesn't never know what Kyrie's going to do.
Yeah, I think there's a different conversation to be had that, like, I think the league, the torch is being passed from the KD LeBron era to the new era of the Ja Morants and these young guys that are coming up and taking that torch and running with it. Like the Jason Tatums, who are like, no, this is my league now, right?
Well, those guys are gonna have to go through Giannis, who's a little bit older, but not much.
And Giannis too, right? Like, so you see the torch being passed in his playoffs, and I get that's partly why people want to see guys like Ben Simmons play and Zion Williamson play, because there's so much great basketball to be consumed right now. It's like, man, what if Ben was playing? What if Zion was playing? So I get it. I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I think that KD has a very interesting perspective, because from KD's standpoint, here's somebody who came back too early to try to win the finals with Golden State, and that ended up costing him a year. So who knows what he's saying? Who knows if he's saying, hey, like, we really need you back, or if he's saying, hey, like, don't cost yourself a whole nother year. Who knows, right? So he's got an interesting perspective on this.
That's 100% true. And KD seems like a great dude, and but at the same time, I think that there's probably a lot of frustration, and clearly there's a lot of people that I think are still just sour. Like, they made up their minds about Ben Simmons last year before knowing anything, and that's always going to affect the coverage, which affects how we then consume the information on our end as those who aren't on the inside. I just thought it was interesting because there is kind of like this. The media, like, mental side of it, soft, whatever label you want to throw on him. And I'm like, I don't know enough to be able to say that definitively, but like, after yet another disappointment, I don't think it's as unreasonable to at least put that in the pile of considerations as maybe, at the end of last summer when he's like, nah, man, I need some help. So we'll see how this plays out, but Simmons out of game 4, and we'll, I'm sure, have more fun things to talk about with the NBA as that are training adjacent, because the training side of this too is like the strength and conditioning coach plays a huge role there in the ability to test things out performance wise and create situations along with the medical staff that can try to suss out that physical versus mental. But at the end of the day, like, the player's got to go, I'm ready, and
it's got to be the player, and even that strength and conditioning coach is only going to be as effective as much as Ben Simmons buys into that strength and conditioning coach, right? So, like, at the end of the day, all of these guys take care of themselves. That is the one thing that I would say is, like, I don't begrudge any player for just looking out for themselves, because it is a dog-eat-dog world out there, and it is like a business, and I've seen organizations treat players like crap. So I don't blame the players for saying, hey, if I'm not ready, I'm not playing, right? So
yeah, agreed.
I will say that part of it is the one part that I'm like, I don't really care for that part where it's like, oh, he owes it to the organization. Like, no, if the organization took this gamble, like, for instance, in the NFL, if an NFL team signed Antonio Brown tomorrow, what would your reaction be? Like, all right, buyer beware, right?
Oh God, you don't even want to go into that rabbit hole.
That's a whole.
Antonio Brown's like the worst human being, one
right.
of the worst human beings in the NFL. That's just a different topic.
And we know that, right? But if it's like, hey, like, I'm gonna deal with this headache because I like what he can do for me on the field. Okay, here comes the headache, right? Mm-hmm. So you got it, and if things blow up in that team's face, whose fault is it? It's that team, right? It's that team for saying.
Well, I think it's both, and that's kind of the thing here too. Is like, because I mean, I talked about this a lot on the radio and in other mediums with Brown specifically. It's just like, yeah, he can stop being a shithead at any time, and also the Bucks should have known better. So they got what was coming to him, but like, he can also do better.
But the Bucks did know better too, right?
Like, that's what I'm saying. That's why both. Two wrongs don't always make a right. Sometimes two wrongs are like really, really, really wrong.
Right. But like look at the way that contract was structured for Antonio down in Tampa Bay. Like that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers saying, "Hey, we'll take a chance on you, and we're not going to go all in." Right.
Yeah.
So, so that's the part where I'm like, hey, this is a little bit on the organization too. And like, there's just no loyalty in pro sports, whether it's between the athletes and the organizations to athletes. That doesn't exist.
There's not, but being a good teammate is a characteristic or a character trait that you should show. And you should have something to your teammates. And if not, then your career is going to be a lot shorter. Like, it's in your best interest to be a good teammate. And we don't know enough to definitively say Ben Simmons, bad teammate, but I think there's a lot of dudes in Philadelphia who'd be willing to co-sign that. And so far in Brooklyn, like, credit to him, he's been in a bunch of games, he's been involved, he's been in every film session, and that stuff's great. But eventually you got to play. And,
I will say this about the whole team thing that you do see it in the NBA because Brooklyn all year with the whole Kyrie thing and now with the Ben Simmons thing and even the way that KD kind of carries himself towards certain media and the way that they want to do things their own way, They wanted to hire Steve Nash as a coach who's never had coaching experience. They wanted to bring in these players who had maybe some question marks, and they wanted to do things their own way. You look at the teams that are the top 3 seeds, right? You look at Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Boston, Miami. What do all 5 of those teams have in common? Buy-in. All of them, every single person on all 5 of those teams buys into the team and the organization and gives it. Now, again, I don't care. You can carry yourself however you want to carry yourself. But if the Brooklyn Nets choose to carry themselves that way, you're seeing that it's much harder to win a championship doing it your own way versus doing it what's been in the proven way, which is having a team that buys in. So I will say that.
Right. It's not like, you're a horrible person at the end of the day, or, like you're doing something illegal or whatever if you want to look out for yourself. But like, actions have consequences. At the end of the day, like, you got to decide what your goals are, what's important to you. And some guys will be like, look, I got my money and then I retired and I got to go to the Cayman Islands whenever I wanted to. And like, that's their thing.
Yeah, do your thing.
And hey, that you set your goals. But, at the same time, I think most guys that are playing, at least, I don't know, maybe it's not that way anymore. You hear some of the older players talk about the way some of the younger players are now. But like, throughout the history of sports, the goal is you want to win. Like, you don't get to that level without being super competitive. And so I think it definitely shows up. Guys like Tatum that want to win so badly. And it doesn't mean that they're always, that they can't get hurt or like sit out a game or take a rest day every now and again, take care of themselves. But it's in the interest of the long-term goal. And I think that's I think the big question in Brooklyn right now. Thanks for checking out this video. If you like it, we got more. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube and check out our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or even our website. It's got everything there. All the links you could possibly want. Go check it out. Trainwiththebest21.com.